You wake up, get dressed, head to work, and when your shift ends, you sleep in your car. Sound extreme? It's not. It's the new reality for thousands of Australians. This is something that honestly doesn't get nearly enough attention in Australia. The rise of working homeless people. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about people with jobs who still can't afford a place to live. People who clock in, work 8 or even 10 hours a day, and then sleep in their cars on someone's couch or in a tent. Not because they're lazy, not because they made bad choices, but because the system has become so expensive, so unforgiving, that even a full-time income just isn't enough anymore. This isn't just a few people slipping through the cracks. This is becoming a trend, a worrying one. And it's happening in one of the richest countries in the world. So how did we get here? Well, to understand the rise of working homelessness in Australia, you have to look at the bigger picture. First, who are the working homeless? Now here's what might surprise you. This isn't just happening to one type of person. The working homeless in Australia aren't just young backpackers or rough sleepers you pass on the street. They're not all single men or people battling addiction. In fact, a growing number are people you probably interact with every day. They're aged care workers, teachers' aides, cleaners, retail assistants, nurses, delivery drivers, security guards, hospitality staff. Some have university degrees. Many are middle-aged. A lot are parents trying to support kids. And most of them never imagined they'd end up in this situation. For many, it only took one thing: a rent increase, a relationship breakdown, a few lost shifts at work, to tip everything over. Suddenly, they're facing eviction, and there's nowhere else to go. And once you're out, getting back in is incredibly hard. You need a rental history, a steady income, a fixed address. But how do you get any of those things when you're living in your car or couch surfing? Even applying for jobs becomes tough when you don't have a place to shower, charge your phone, or list as your home address. It becomes a vicious cycle, one that's almost impossible to escape without help. And right now, that help is in short supply. How do they end up there? Let's break it down. When a paycheck isn't enough. Let's start with pay, because that's where a lot of this begins. Australia's minimum wage is often seen as one of the highest in the world. Right now, it sits at $23.23 an hour. On paper, that might seem pretty solid. But when you stack it up against the actual cost of living, it barely holds up. A full-time worker on minimum wage earns just under $45,000 a year before tax. And in today's Australia, that doesn't stretch very far. In cities like Sydney or Melbourne, rent for a one-bedroom apartment can easily eat up more than half that income. That's before you even get to groceries, fuel, bills, or childcare. And here's the kicker. Not everyone is even getting full-time hours. More and more people are stuck in part-time, casual, or gig roles with no guaranteed income, no sick leave, no job security, and no consistency. So you might be working hard, really hard, and still living week to week, barely scraping by. If you're in retail, aged care, hospitality, or doing delivery gigs, this probably sounds all too familiar. The hours come and go, but the bills don't. And that's how people end up working, and still homeless. The rental crisis. If you've tried to find a rental recently, you already know. It's brutal out there. Since the pandemic, rents have skyrocketed. Nationally, they've gone up over 30%, and in some areas, it's even worse. Add in record low vacancy rates, and it's a perfect storm. Landlords can hike prices without much pushback because someone out there is desperate enough to pay it. Let's put that into perspective. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, it's now completely normal to see a one-bedroom apartment going for $500 or even $600 a week. That's around $2,000 to $2,400 a month just for rent. Now imagine you're earning $3,000 a month after tax. More than 2/3 of your income is gone before you've even bought groceries or filled your tank. And we're not even talking about extras. We're talking basics. And then there are the upfront costs: bond, 2 weeks rent in advance, moving fees. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, it's just not doable. Even if you somehow get approved for a place, affording to move in is a whole other battle. So what do people do? They stay in unstable housing, sleep in their cars, crash on friends' couches, pitch tents near train stations. They do whatever it takes to get by, hoping something better comes along. But for a growing number of working Australians, it doesn't. Not anytime soon. And not without serious help that just isn't there right now. Cars as homes. One of the most visible, yet somehow still overlooked, signs of Australia's housing crisis is the rising number of people living out of their cars. Not because they're chasing freedom or adventure, but because they've run out of options. If you drive past a beachside car park, a 24-hour gym, or an industrial area early in the morning, you might catch a glimpse of it. Someone quietly brushing their teeth at the public sink. Someone changing clothes in the back seat. Someone pretending to be okay, getting ready for work. They blend in. Most people wouldn't even notice. But they're there, and they're not just backpackers chasing the van life aesthetic. These are working Australians. Cleaners, bartenders, delivery drivers, sometimes even families with kids sleeping in cramped cars night after night because they simply can't find or afford a rental. According to the latest data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, over 122,000 people were experiencing homelessness on census night in 2021. And what's even more alarming is that more than 1 in 5 of them were employed. That means tens of thousands of Australians were working, some full-time, and still had nowhere stable to live. And these are just the official numbers. The truth is, the real figure today is likely much higher. Frontline homelessness services in Australia are struggling to keep up with a surge in demand, particularly from individuals experiencing housing stress for the first time. This is what we call hidden homelessness. It's not always on the streets or under bridges. It's in parking lots, tents, motels, and spare rooms. It's quiet, it's hard to track, but it's growing, and it's very, very real. Government housing isn't keeping up. You might be wondering, what about public housing? Isn't that what it's for? And yes, in theory, public housing exists to support people who are struggling. It's supposed to be the safety net when the private market fails. But in reality, that net is full of holes. Waiting lists are incredibly long. In some states, you could be waiting anywhere from 5 to 10 years, sometimes even longer, just to be placed in a home. That's not a backup plan. That's a crisis moving in slow motion, and the demand keeps growing while the supply barely moves. Very little new public housing is being built, and what does exist often goes to the most extreme cases first, meaning people who are just working homeless might not even qualify as urgent enough. Even emergency housing options, like shelters or temporary motels, are overwhelmed. These services are doing their best, but they're stretched paper thin. There just isn't enough funding, staff, or space to handle the wave of people who now need help. So while public housing technically exists, for most people on the edge of homelessness, it's simply not a realistic option. Not now. Not when the need is immediate and the system is years behind. And that leaves more and more people to fend for themselves, with nowhere safe to go. The cost of everything. It's not just rent that's gone through the roof. It's everything. Groceries, petrol, electricity, insurance, phone bills, childcare, the essentials. The things no one can really live without. A few years ago, these costs were manageable. But now, they're relentless. Food prices have climbed. Power bills have spiked. Even a basic trip to the supermarket can feel like a shock to the system. And if you're earning a low to middle income, it all adds up fast. So even if your rent isn't completely outrageous, the rest of life is. You're constantly juggling. Pay the gas bill or buy the school shoes. Fill the tank or fill the fridge. There's no breathing room, no buffer. And the smallest thing can send it all spiraling. One flat tire, one sick day, one unexpected medical bill. That's all it takes to fall behind. And once you're behind, it's hard to catch up. The safety net that once existed, whether it was savings, help from family, or government support, just isn't what it used to be. Savings have been drained. Family members are struggling too. And Centrelink payments don't come close to covering real-world expenses. People aren't failing because they're irresponsible. They're falling because the system around them is too tight, too expensive, and too unforgiving. Mental and physical toll. Living in a car or couch surfing might seem like a temporary fix, but trust me, it takes a serious toll on people. Imagine trying to sleep in a cramped back seat for a week. You're uncomfortable, restless, and exhausted. Now add in the pressure of working a full-time job, trying to stay clean, stay alert, stay productive, all while hiding the fact that you have no stable home, hiding it from your coworkers, hiding it from your boss. You can't let anyone find out because the shame feels unbearable. It's exhausting. It's isolating. It wears people down in ways you can't even imagine. Mental health starts to deteriorate. Anxiety, depression, and stress become constant companions. Physical health suffers too. Poor sleep, lack of proper nutrition, and a general decline in well-being. People begin to feel ashamed, even though they haven't done anything wrong. They're just trying to survive. And the hardest part? They start to believe this is just the way things are now, that this is their new normal. That's the real tragedy. When people stop believing that things can get better, when hope slips away and all that's left is the grind, day after day, fighting just to stay afloat. Australia's identity crisis. Australia has long prided itself on being the land of the fair go. The idea that if you work hard, you'll get ahead. That's been the message drilled into us for generations. But what happens when that promise no longer holds up? When you put in the hours, do the right thing and still end up struggling? When you do everything you're supposed to do and still fall behind? That's the question more and more Australians are starting to ask. And it's shaking the foundation of how we view ourselves, our future, and even our country. If working full-time doesn't guarantee you a roof over your head, then we've got a serious problem. A system that's meant to reward hard work and ambition is leaving people behind. And not just a few, but a growing number of people who've been following the rules their entire lives. When you can't even count on a steady job to keep you housed, it forces us all to rethink what fairness really means. It makes us question whether the system is truly built to help everyone succeed, or just the lucky few. That's a wake-up call for the entire nation. What's being done? To be fair, there are some efforts underway. Some councils have started setting up safe parking programs, where people living in their cars can park overnight in a secure location with access to toilets and support services. There are also charities and organizations stepping up, doing food runs, offering mobile showers, helping people find temporary accommodation. But here's the reality. These are band-aid solutions, and they're being run by volunteers and underfunded NGOs, not by a system that's built to solve the root problem. What we need is large-scale investment in affordable housing, stronger protections for renters, fairer wages, and more secure jobs. That's the only way to stop this from becoming the new normal. Because right now, it's starting to feel like we're just managing the crisis instead of fixing it. Why this matters. Some people hear working homeless and they think, well, it's not me, I've got a place, I'm fine. But this isn't just about compassion, though we should have plenty of that. It's about recognizing how fragile the system has become, how close so many of us are to the edge without even realizing it. Maybe you're okay now, but what if your rent jumps by $100 a week? What if your landlord sells? What if your hours are cut? Or you get sick? Or your relationship ends? Most Australians don't have a few months of rent saved up. Many don't even have a few weeks, and once you fall behind, it's incredibly hard to catch up again. So this isn't just about those people. This is about all of us. It's about the kind of country we want to live in, one where people who work still get to live with dignity, with safety, with hope. Because when working doesn't guarantee you a home, then we need to ask, what's the point? What can we do? There's no easy fix, but there are steps we can take. Support local organizations that are helping the homeless. Push for policy changes, real ones, that build more affordable housing and fund support services properly. Raise awareness, talk about it, share stories. And most importantly, stop judging people for being in a situation that's become way too common. Nobody chooses to live in a car, nobody wants to raise kids in a tent, and nobody should have to work full-time and still not know where they'll sleep at night. This isn't just a housing issue, it's a human one. Thanks for watching. If this hit home for you or made you think, share it with someone. Start a conversation. Because the more we ignore it, the worse it gets. Let's make sure the idea of working and being homeless doesn't become something we just accept. Australia can do better, and it has to.